Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Figuring out, because like some of the stuff we spec'd out, it's like, hey, we think building 6 units is the right play here. Like, why not more? Because you can. I mean, we could do 9, we could do 10. It's like, it's just it making sure that there's like some space, for like amenities and, not changing the dynamics of the neighborhood too much. Because like this is like newer. And so if you're doing it in areas that don't really have multifamily yet, you kind of got to like play that, the dance, to make sure you don't upset the balance of the neighborhood too much.
Well, you don't want to over improve that particular piece of property versus the other properties that are in the area, right? So
yeah, just like comparables, like when you're flipping, like you don't want to like make something that nobody wants.
Right.
And so you kind of have to like use the discretion in that sense. So it's really fun. And it's like one of the things is like the owner that I work with, myself and Brian and this guy, like he's like, a lot of times the difficulty of the project is directly related to the yield on it. And so development is hard. Like it's very confusing, it's expensive, it's time consuming. But it's in one sense, it's simple because the same ingredients are at play, and you just have to be a lot more I forget, like your due diligence is a very big deal with this stuff.
you'd be more disciplined.
Yeah, like and diligent to look at all the different things and
Detail oriented, that kind of thing.
But it can be like extremely rewarding for a lot of different reasons, for cash flow, for the equity that you're creating, your tax benefits and opportunities there. And so in a place like San Diego, where there's not a ton of not really many places to go. Like got the mountains, the ocean, Camp Pendleton, Mexico. And so it's like, okay, like you gotta increase density. And that's what the city, has put the green light on. And so it's a very like exciting thing that we're starting to do. And because the company that I'm doing this with and helping spearhead this like new development and acquisitions efforts for is like they do design and permitting, and they've done like close to 2,000 doors permitted, I think over 500 projects. And so in that sense, like there's a lot of proof of concept there. And then it's like, okay, putting that developer hat on for us is like a fun challenge. So
it's a learning experience too, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting a great education.
Yeah, I'm like, it's very challenging. But I like it. Like it's almost like we hit a roadblock and it's like kind of defeating for a little bit, and you're like, dang it, disappointed and or frustrated, and then like but you're like, wait, we're gonna like fail forward here. That's like, I feel like that's what a lot of it is like, um, you know, because the little things like swing these projects, you know, a lot, you know, in especially if like it changes what you can do. But what's also cool because they're so big projects, like if you have, you know, a change order, you know, come up, you know, where it's like, oh, well, you gotta like do a new water line upgrade, or, you know, do this, you know, different thing, and it's like 50 grand, where that might like totally kill a flip, and you're like, I'm losing money. But like on these, there's so much margin, you know, that's getting created. It's like, this sucks, but
It doesn't kill it.
yeah, you know, the end is worth it. That's why the upfront due diligence is so important, because you're trying to sniff, you know, as many of these out and put in like certain redundancies in your underwriting and contingencies of like, okay, like we're putting, you know, 10-15% contingency for unknowns, and you just bake it in, because you can start to learn like, oh, like we got this one under contract. It was like 16,000 square foot lot, and it was RM11 zoning, and we were like, oh, cool. So if you can build the base FAR for RM11 is 0.75, and if you build 3 units, like 3 actual dwelling units, you get bumped up to 1.0 FAR.
Okay.
So, but then if you build, I think it's 5 or 8. I feel like it's like 8. I don't know, Brian is like the guy who like really knows this stuff, but we were able to figure it out how to like get it up to this benchmark, to where we had it bumped up again to 1.25 FAR. So now it's like we could build over 20,000 square feet of livable square footage, and we're like, holy crap, you know, like,
Right. On a
so we
16,000
had it.
square foot lot.
Yeah, so we had, you know, we're like, we can do like 34 units here. And
Incredible.
so this is where the pain comes in. You know, we like find out like it's in a floodplain. We're like, oh man, like, you know, learning of like, dang, like this can be a project killer, because like it can, you know, potentially change it into like a discretionary permit. It's a city, like if you're changing the impervious parts of that lot, you know, they might make you do so much like stormwater management, and it might just throw the whole project off. Or they might even say like, hey, like you can't do this, like we're not going to let you like move this dirt, you know, that much. And so it's like, but now it's in our process, so that's the whole failing forward part. Like check floodplain, like every deal now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
See, it's just you're just developing as you go. You're learning and getting better and failing forward, like you said.
Yeah.
That's cool, buddy. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
Well, for the sake of time, I'm like, I'm itching to just ask you like all about like your, you know, what you're doing in your life. But I don't know how long these episodes normally are, but maybe we could just like have another phone call, just you and me, and catch up. But what do you feel like you're like? I mean, this seems like this podcast is like, you know, big, you know, undertaking of yours to really like get a lot of stuff, you know, gathered and put out. But like, what's like, how does this fit into like the bigger picture, and what's your like what's your big focus right now?
So my big thing is this first book, the homeownership book. And the reason why it's a big thing to me is, you know, I've been promoting homeownership for 30 plus years, right? And 31 plus. And I believe that if I can attain a large enough national profile, okay, I believe I can drive a narrative where I can reach millennials, and I can convince them and their parents, right, that the American dream, part of the American dream, needs to be homeownership again. Okay. we're literally raising a generation of renters. Okay. And according to the National Association of Realtors, the average net worth of a homeowner is over $300,000. The average net worth of a tenant is less than $8,000. So if you take that $292,000 delta per person times tens of millions of millennials, okay, we now have a major chasm. And considering that 74% of this nation's net worth is real estate, our standard of living now and in the future is potentially injured if we don't get back to where millennials understand that homeownership, how important homeownership is. Homeownership creates, and you know this, creates stability. It creates futures for children that renting doesn't. Renting, and they've done a bunch of studies on this, and the psychological effects of being a tenant versus being an owner of a home has an effect on the children. Okay. And so I am hugely passionate about homeownership and the benefits of it. And I'm also hugely passionate now that I'm a dad of a 23 and a 25-year-old. I want to leave this world a better place than we found it. Okay. So we're writing a book on homeownership. The next book after that's going to be a book for realtors on how to succeed in real estate. The next book after that is going to be on real estate investing. And we're going to be knocking on your door again to interview you for that book. Okay. So, but all of them are about doing it the right way. We're not cutting corners. We're not using the word hack. We're not doing all the things that are clickbait now. We're not doing that. What we're doing is literally coming at this the way I operate. And if you know me, you know I'm not a clickbait person. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not that exciting. Okay. I'm very boring. I am somebody who believes in doing it the right way. It's black or it's white. It's right or it's wrong. There are no shades of gray in my world, the way I look at it. Okay. By the way, my grandfather was the exact same way. And I believe that I can have an impact. I believe we can all have an impact. And I believe that part of that, having that impact, is our having collectively a larger vision. Okay. Because I don't believe that the millennial generation has leadership right now. I don't believe that a lot of people in our country and around the world have leadership. So I sat with Alan Nevin, I told you, a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago now, to do our first interview for our podcast. And I met him at his home in Rancho Peñasquitas, and we interviewed him on his back patio because that's his happy place. Okay. And one of the things that he told me before we hit record was, he said, I wish you knew how perfect your timing is. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, he said, in the last 3 years, over 1 billion people have gained internet access worldwide. And he said, and in the next 3 years, it's estimated there will be another 1 billion. Okay. So in 6 years' time, okay, there's going to be 2 billion people estimated that will gain internet access. And I said, why do you think that's important? He said, well, because that's where they get their podcast, Mike. That's where they get their YouTube. Okay. And so my feeling is we're at the right time. We're doing the right thing at the right time. Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe that we can teach and lead in a way that is honest, that's forthright, that's truthful, that is wholesome, that isn't about shortcuts, right? One of the reasons we're writing the realtor book is because I've gone numb listening to all the shortcuts and all the hacks and all the things that you do to trick people. It's not how I roll. Yeah. I've never rolled that way. And maybe that book doesn't sell so well. Okay. But it's going to be me. It's going to be my Midwestern values. It's going to be the way I was raised on a farm in Oklahoma. Okay. It's going to be, this is my view of the world. This is my view of real estate. This is my view of homeownership. And so that's where all this is going. The podcast, the YouTube channels, the books, everything we're doing is designed specifically to build this profile, right, to where we have a national voice. And that national voice we're going to use for good. And I'll give you an example if you don't mind. I was watching a national interview the other day on a national news station, one of the most popular news channels on the planet, and they interviewed a realtor. And that realtor got on that program and said that it's impossible right now for first-time home buyers to buy a house. That's not factually correct. Okay. And not only did they say that, they also said that inventory is so low that it's almost impossible for anybody to buy a house. That's not factually correct. Plus, that person who supposedly is an expert in our industry gave absolutely no solution whatsoever. No potential fix, no nothing. No way for people to be able to reach out to their local real estate professional and say, hey, talk to me about a 2-1 buy down. Talk to me about an FHA mortgage where I don't have to put anything down. All of the down payment, all the closing costs, all the reserves can all be a gift. Talk to me about an FHA loan where I don't have to come out of pocket one dime and my parents can co-sign with me or my aunt and uncle can co-sign with me. Okay. These are all things that nobody talks about. Nobody, and I'm not talking about absolutely, I'm just saying I watch too much of this and it frustrates me. Because
the public narrative is,
well, it's the whining thing. Okay. We get on national television, we whine about how terrible everything is. Because if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's not how I roll. Okay. It might be that we're in a shift in the market right now, but I got news for you. Right now, we have inventory that's 34 days. Okay. There was a time when we had inventory for 8 months and I was in that market. Okay. Here in San Diego.
Yeah.
We were in a honest to goodness real estate depression here. What we have right now isn't even remotely close to what that is. But the people they're interviewing, Jonny, have been in the business 4 minutes. Okay. Or 4 years. They haven't known anything but the current market. Right. So when people were talking about a recession and they were talking about the market shifting, they were talking about all these other things, I wasn't getting excited about it. I've been through some humdingers, right? And I not only survived, I thrived. And I've been active every single day for 31 plus years. The only reason I've been able to do that is because I just keep going. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? And I focus on what I'm supposed to be focused on. So that's what this is about. I hope
that's
awesome.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you be a part of it. So
yeah, big fan here. I think it's like having genuine like growth.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to shortcut it. Like it's like stacking things.
Yeah.
Like, and the
same vital values that you grew up with is exactly what we're putting in these books. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly what we're putting in these podcast episodes. It's important to me, vitally important to me, that we leave a legacy, that we leave something and we leave this world a better place than where we found it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you have a chance, read Alan's book. It just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Next Half Century. I've read it because I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago on this podcast regarding that book. And I think it should be required reading for anybody in business. It's called The Next Half Century. And what it talks about is what the world is going to look like. He goes into Japan. He's talking about Korea. He's talking about Vietnam. He's talking about China. He's talking about Russia. He's talking about the European Union. He talks about California. Okay. He talks about, the Sun Belt and Texas and Florida. The other book that I think is required reading is The Great Divide, which he wrote and published in 2017. And you were talking about how we're short on inventory here. One of the things that Alan shared with us years ago on my radio shows was if we don't add another person in San Diego County, then leaves, right? If all that stays constant, we still need in terms of organic growth, we still need 12,500 new units sold every single month, every single year. We have not done that since before 2008. We've not reached that number. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's because of the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. It's because of the Sierra Club. It's because of all these, environmentalists and all these other things, right? Anti-growth, all that. But it's also because we have had municipalities that make developing hard. They made developing here hard. Okay.
Yeah.
And they've made it prohibitive in terms of regulation, approvals, mitigation, entitlements, everything. They've made it prohibitive here. Okay. So I don't know if you know who Corky McMillan is, but Corky McMillan was famously a native San Diegan. Okay. And Corky McMillan built up the Corky McMillan Development Company. And he also built up McMillan Realty. Okay. And right after he passed away, his grown children that had taken over the company moved the headquarters of the company from Chula Vista, California to San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
This is an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. You start looking at the world headquarters of some of these really, really major builders. Lennar is one of the largest. They're based out of Tampa. Okay. We used to have home builders that were based out of California. They're not anymore. There's a reason. Okay. And so I feel like we need to have an open conversation and a candid conversation about what's happening here and why, and then figure out some sort of real world solution for it. ADUs are a great idea, and it's a great opportunity right now, and I'm glad you're taking advantage of it. I don't think it's the long-term fix.
No, I think it's really like a 5-year, like there's about a 5-year horizon on it.
It's like a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
But something had to happen. Something had to give. Okay. And so, we got to get this thing figured out. And in that book, the next half century, in that book, he talks about the fact that California is top grading. A lot of our lower income citizens are moving from here, and they're going to Texas and Florida and that kind of thing. And we're bringing in PhDs, MBAs, right? We're JDs. We're bringing in these people that have these, monstrous educational backgrounds. The challenge is we're outpricing the people who need to do the work for us. We're outpricing the cooks. We're outpricing the bus staff. We're outpricing the people that we need here to function as a society. There's more venture capital. This is in the book too. There's more venture capital coming into California right now than any other place in the United States. Okay, that's a big deal. There's more opportunity here, is what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a situation where we're losing people that are essential. So
there's you would actually like this statistic, but there was a decade-long case study of San Francisco. San Francisco is kind of a fortunate case study of affordability and really pushing out the middle class. Because the middle class, like, essentially they have the option to leave, like they have the means to leave, some marketable skill sets to be able to go, but you have your the lower class that they're really tied, geographically to wherever they are. And then you have this upper class that's kind of like moving in. But it was an interesting statistic that they talked about of they looked at when this tech boom really started coming into play, like, out of the Great Recession. San Francisco, okay, well, so the statistic of what is the proper rate of growth between jobs added and housing units built. It was for every 1.5 jobs that an economy adds, you should provide a housing unit. A new housing unit should be there. San Francisco had a decade-long run of adding 8 jobs for every 1 new housing unit. And so, it's, you look at it, like this, of like, it's just
completely unbalanced. Yeah.
And so that's where kind of this, ADU thing, it's kind of making up for, this lost time in a sense. But yeah, I'm curious like what that like equilibrium can look like, because it's like bureaucracy is honest is like the biggest challenge. And what's crazy is like a lot of times bureaucracy, like you look at people like in the face and it's like there's no malice like in their bones. It's just like it just is what it is. Like, you know, that's how things go, and it's just very difficult for no reason. And that's like what's, you know, kind of infuriating, but it's also like can be encouraging in a certain way, to where like there's opportunity for addressing the problem and tackling it and pushing through. I think that's the big thing of like being able to set yourself up like with the people, you know, that you're with, your capital situation, and like to be able to actually like be able to see things through to tackle a problem. And so that's kind of what we're, you know, looking at. We're looking at this like 3-year, 5-year horizon, and even like a 10-year like big goal. And you know, just of what we, you know, the dent that we're trying to make. And you know, one of the aspects of that is like making development easier and, you know, more accessible in certain ways. But that's the, yeah, like this topic that lights me up, because I'm just, you know, like it angers you too, of like, but you realize, you know, of like the, you know, to stay, you know, you want to have the staying power to like actually see it through. You know, because a lot of people are just like, it's not my fight. Like I'm just gonna go. It's like, I get it. I understand.
Yeah, but what happens is when enough people do this, when enough people basically say, I give up, and they leave, we lose. Those of us that stay lose. And at some point, those losses are racking up. And so, you know, my feeling about it is we need to get to a place to where we have solutions. So one of the things that I'm doing is the CEO of the Building Industry Association in San Diego is actually a friend of mine, and she's coming on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Lori Filer. So one of the things we're going to be talking about when she's on the podcast is we're going to be talking about solutions. We're going to be talking about different things that we can do to help solve this massive inventory issue, right? And things that the Building Industry Association is doing in partnership with some of the local municipalities and that kind of thing. So should be enlightening. We're going to be getting together with her sometime next month, and she's super excited to get on the calendar. And so you know, it should be really good. We also have the chairwoman at the end of this month. We have the chairwoman of the Republican Party in San Diego County. She's coming on the podcast. So we're starting to get some people that have some authority, right? And we're starting to gather, if you will, a lot of the data and a lot of the information that we need so that we can make a, you know, a major contribution. So I'm looking forward to it. This has been an absolute labor of love for me, and it's something that's been in the making for 9 years now. I've been on radio and television in San Diego since 2011. And in 2014, I gave up a daily show that I had that was an hour each day, Monday through Friday, evening drive time, on KCBQ, called the Mike Litton Show. And I gave it up because I needed to go chase my kids around while they were in high school. I was missing that, and that was not an acceptable outcome for me. So I took a self-imposed hiatus, and I told myself that I was either going to come back on radio or I was going to create a podcast. And the podcast, I wanted to tell people stories. I wanted to give people an opportunity to tell what they're, you know, where they came from, you know, how they ended up out here, how they ended up doing what they're doing. And I promise you this, there will be people that will listen to this podcast and they will be inspired and they will be motivated because there'll be something in your past, like growing up in Ohio or growing up in a small town or living in Rochester, whatever, right? There'll be something. They might have a wife that's older than them, right? Whatever, right? They might have a daughter, they might have a baby that was in ICU, right?
Yeah.
There's something in there that they'll connect with you, and it'll inspire and motivate them, I promise you. And that's what we're all about. We're all about inspiring and motivating. And I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this. I'm a big fan. So any way I can support into the future.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay?
All right.
Thank you, buddy. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.